Hey everyone, I'm Darshana Patel, energy healer, medium, channel, and host of Enlighten Up. Join me for episodes each week on the Lighter Side Network as I interview intriguing guests, channel spirits, and even perform some stand-up comedy to enlighten us on living an empowered and authentic life. Are you ready? Let's raise the vibe. The Lighter Side Network, where the everyday meets the extraordinary.
Hi everybody, it's Laura Boone with The Real Ethereal Show, and I'm so excited about today's show. I've got Darshana here from the network. We're cross-pollinating today, aren't we?
Totally.
Our shows. She has the Enlighten Up show, so check that out. It's a great show. So Darshana and I were hanging out at the studio last week, and there's this little room that's really great. That's sort of a sofa room, and we all kind of convene in between our shows and after our shows. And we were having this conversation, and it ended up going for a really long time. And afterwards, we kind of both looked at each other and said, people would probably want to hear this. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. And it was about fake psychics, fake practitioners in this industry. And then also it kind of morphed into us talking about skeptics. How do we each deal with skeptics? How do we address the concerns that people have about, is this real? Or how do you prove that you're really doing this? Or my religion says this is wrong. And how do we address these concerns? And we've both addressed it because we've been practicing for years, these same issues over and over, and we each had our own opinions about it and experiences and stories. So we thought it would be a really good show to kind of relive that conversation and let all of you know, because I think it's useful information. Absolutely. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, because we're all faced with the skeptics in our lives, right? Whether it's our lives or your lives. Mm-hmm. And how do you navigate that with, I would say, understanding and compassion? Mm-hmm. And then how do you deal with some of the negative press that psychics and this kind of work sometimes gets too?
Right. And, that leads us to the first point, I would say. The reason there's a lot of negative press is because there's some legitimate reason for it. Yeah. There are, unfortunately, a lot of people out there who take advantage, because this sort of practice, and just by the way, for those of you who haven't really gotten to know Darshana yet on her show Enlighten Up, you do channeling. Mm-hmm. You also do Reiki, which is an energy healing dealing with chakras, and you can speak more to what's Reiki exactly. Yeah, so I know what it is, but you can speak better than me about it.
I do Reiki and energy work, and so essentially what I'm doing is working on the energetic body, which, if everything is energy and vibration, to get to the core of anything that's going on with us, let's work with the energetic body. Let's work with the light body in order to resolve issues, release patterns, and that sort of thing.
So when someone does Reiki, if you've never had a Reiki session, depending on the practitioner, they don't touch you, and it's not like you go to medical school. It's not like you get a PhD in Reiki. There is training for it, obviously, and a lot of knowledge, but it's not board certified. And so people can shoot a lot of holes in it, and it from the surface, it seems like hooey. I mean, honestly.
It totally does.
And I do astrology, and I'm clairvoyant and clairsentient, and I'm starting to channel as well. And so I obviously believe in these metaphysical tenets because they've worked in my life and they've worked in other people's lives. But I will just say, the first couple of Reiki practitioners I went to, I didn't really get it, to be honest with you. And when I saw Darshana, it was really one of the first times I ever had an experience where I said, oh, this is what this is. And it was very legitimate. But that being said, anybody can really call themselves a Reiki master. And a lot of people wouldn't know, a real practitioner from another one. And when we were talking about this in the green room or whatever you want to call it, you brought up a couple of instances where you just had a lot of concern about some of the practitioners people were talking about that they have been going to.
Yeah.
I mean, what are some of those concerns that you had? I mean, what are some of the things that you're hearing that are happening out there?
Yeah, so,
When it comes to Reiki.
When it comes to Reiki specifically, I think there's a lot of people who are now practicing the work, which I love, right? Because you spread the light, and
Word's getting out.
yeah, word really is getting out. And the one thing to really be aware of is, I hear from some of my clients who've been to other practitioners that they were told they needed to come back a certain number of times by other practitioners, that they build this almost a codependent relationship with, between client and practitioner. And I think that's really unhealthy, because what we're here to do is enable you to, move about your life and feel empowered. And you come back and you see people like us when you need to check in, when you need to, clear some patterns, some energy, and just expand your own consciousness or intuition. But we're not here to tell you how many times you need to be seen, or that you've got some curse that can't be lifted, or things like that.
Flag number 1.
Yeah.
Flag number 1. When you go to a psychic or a Reiki practitioner or anybody in a metaphysical field, to me, the first time when they look at you and they go, you really need to buy a book of sessions in order to get this problem fixed. You really need to follow this program, and it's going to cost a whole bunch of money, and you need to keep coming back. And by the way, I'm the only one who can help you with this. My program is the only program that can help you with this. That's a big red flag, wouldn't you say? And I have people that come to me, and almost every single person that I read for, at the end, maybe I would say 50% of them, at the end they look at me and they say, well, how often do people come back? When should I come back? And I have to tell you, that's a really vulnerable moment for somebody, and I know that it's vulnerable. We've just had an emotional experience, right? And I feel like they've had a good reading. I mean, I can tell they've had a reading that really meant a lot to them. A lot of times people come to me and they're having an emotional crisis, or they're having, a moment in their lives where they need help. And I know we've talked about that too. A lot of your people are going through something, and they're there so that we can try to help them. So they're vulnerable. Yeah. They're in a vulnerable situation, and they look at me and they say that. And I, flag number 2, when you get an answer that's like, well, you need to come right back, that's not the right answer, in my opinion. I mean, the right answer is, which is what I try to say, is how often you need to come back.
That's exactly what I say at the end of my sessions. Because most people, when they sit up off the table after a Reiki session, they ask, so how often do people come back? Or how often do you recommend I come back? And I say, trust your intuition. And sometimes they're like, oh, because they're not used to trusting their intuition. Trust your intuition. You'll know when it's time. You know what this work does to support you. See how it resonates with you. Try out other practitioners. That's the other thing I say too. Don't feel like I'm the only one. Go try some others out and see who vibes with you, because we're all a little different, and that's okay.
Well, and you're bringing up another point. Trust your judgment with this, because I could be really, really a great person for Sally, but for Bob, I'm not. It reminds me a lot of therapy in a way, and we're not therapists, but people, they feel like they're not a good judge, or they feel like they don't have the right skills or the right knowledge to really know if they're with somebody good or not. And practitioners take advantage of that. They take advantage of it, I believe. So when you go to somebody like this, you will know if it helped you. You know. You know if you feel better. You know if that person told you the truth. You know if that person really was effective to help you. And then you make a decision from there how often you need to come back, I think.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
You've got to really trust your own intuition and guidance. And a lot of times when people, come to us, and I know particularly for me, a lot of times if I'm passing on, psychic information, they'll say, wow, that was validation. And I love hearing that, because we're already all getting this information, right? But when you get the validation, it builds more confidence that, okay, I can trust myself. So that's the big thing. You want to find practitioners that cultivate you empowering and trusting yourself, I think is really key.
I completely agree. When my readings, when I feel like they're very effective, it's the same thing. People leave and they go, you just helped me really validate and feel more confident about things I already knew. That's a great point. So when you leave a session that's been really good, you feel stronger. You don't feel more dependent on that person.
That's key.
You feel more dependent on yourself. You feel more confident. So watch how you feel. Does this person make me feel stronger, or does this person make me feel more uncertain, so I need to go back to them to get my certainty? You should feel more certain about the path you need to be on, not less certain, when you see a good practitioner.
Yes,
Wouldn't you say?
absolutely, absolutely. There can be a little bit of it, like a destabilizing time where you're receiving this information and you don't even know how to make sense of it. And so there can be that disruptive couple of days where you're like, okay, I just need to feel this out. And then once it kind of settles in, you're like, all right, that makes sense. And now I know what to do, or, okay, that did help me. But initially, sometimes we're not ready to receive the information in the way that, because it's going to shake us up, right? Mm-hmm. So it's causing change, which can be uncomfortable. But once you really let it sit in, you go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I can feel that that's really leading me in the proper direction. Because we're not making this information up. It's coming to us. We're just translating for you. Yeah, it's coming through us, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so we're just passing it along. And as you're developing your own intuition, it's just, we're helping to translate that information. That's how I see it.
I completely agree. I feel like it comes through me. And that brings up another red flag and another good point to me. When you are seeing a practitioner and they are getting this channeled information or saying that they are, and they get really literal and certain about their advice to you, red flag. Okay? Because, and I have people that come to me, Darshana, and they want me to be really, really literal, and they want me to say, well, what should I do? Okay, what is this really about? And the information, we are human filters when we do this work. So it's coming through the Laura filter. It's coming through the Darshana filter,
yeah.
Right? So it's not black and white. It's not crystal clear. The more literal a practitioner is with you, that to me is something you need to be wary of. Because what you were just saying is true. I tell people, go home and let this sink in. And a lot of times, an energy I was getting about maybe an event that's going to happen, I might not know exactly what that event is going to be exactly. And of course, people want me to tell them, is there going to be a car accident? Is there going to be, what do you mean you see somebody, a hospital setting, right? I really don't like to get so literal because, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll get back in touch with me 3 months later and they're like, I know what that is now. And because I wasn't so literal, they're like, it was this. I go, great. And that helps teach me too. Sometimes you'll be getting this energy and it's sort of in this category of events, right? So when I've had friends of mine actually that will sit in front of me and get a reading and they start asking me real literal questions. Well, what do you mean? And I just almost like take their hand and say, just, it's okay. And this isn't literal. And you need to sit with this and let it sink in, and then you can figure out where this is showing up in your life.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Because free will is always a part of the picture too. So, like when I'm receiving information, I might be getting images or words, but it's often in a contextual way because we still have, things are going to manifest and develop as time goes on, and who knows? Because every choice you make to get in the car, not get in the car, makes there's a ripple effect, the butterfly effect, if you will. So every choice you make can create a different outcome. So we are sensitive to the idea that there are major things that are mapped out in life, but how we get there or whether or not we bypass certain situations are based on every choice every minute. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, 90% of things aren't set in stone. There's a good 10% that are, particular illnesses,
deaths.
Yeah, deaths, circumstances that our life will go through, because there's soul lessons that we're learning. And that's why I like to focus more on the overall soul lessons that we're going through, and not, well, should I buy this house or this house? Because that doesn't leave for the space for free will and exploration, and then also self-trust in that as well. We can guide, but still it's up to you to make the final decision. I mean, that's how I like to present information.
It's exactly how I do too, because we're not trying to help people do their lives.
Right. That's a key word.
We're trying to help people be more confident about doing their own life.
That's key.
And not feel like a victim to your life, or not feel so out of control. I mean, we ultimately are out of control, and I think that's a lot of reason why people come to people like us, because they want that extra edge of information so that they can feel a little more in control.
Yeah.
But really what happens in my readings and what comes through me is more what you're saying. It's more, what's the reason why you're feeling challenged right now and out of control? And a lot of times what makes people feel so good is they go, oh, I'm learning this lesson right now. This is actually really good for me to be going through this. Like, if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be learning the lesson.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's a really great point. The other thing I wanted to talk about is when I have, and you and I talked about this when we were sitting on the sofa, I have people that come to me and they may really be helped by something I've done or something I've said. And I mean, I love these people. They're like, oh my gosh, I have to get my husband in here. He needs to do this. He needs to hear from you. You're going to set him straight. Oh my gosh. No. Do not force people to come see. First of all, I look at them and say, please don't. I don't want to see him. I mean, if he will come on his own free will and is excited about it, great. But don't, if something's worked really well for you, you can mention it to someone. But to try to push somebody into a situation where they feel uncomfortable, that's another red flag about a practitioner too. Like, if you have a practitioner and they're like, you get him in here and pay me X amount of money and I will get this straightened out for you. That's a red flag, you guys. Because this work, it's not just us in a vacuum handing down information to somebody. We're working with our clients. Yeah. They have to be active participants. They have to be open to this. They have to be ready for whatever Laura does or whatever Darshana does. Mm-hmm. I mean, have you ever had this happen where people are like, oh, I'm bringing my annoying teenager in here and we're going to get them all straightened out?
Yes.
It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, it's a common thing. And I say exactly what you do. Number one, they've got to be open to some degree and willing and ready. And I think people come to this work when they are ready. Mm-hmm. We can't force anyone to be open-minded. And I say, when the time comes, when they need it, they'll show up and they'll find the right practitioner that resonates with them and gives them the kind of care and information that they need. So, leave it up to the people in your lives to decide when it's time. You can extend the invite, but don't ever force anyone, because it puts us in a compromising situation too. I get husbands and wives in, I get children and mothers. A lot of people want to send their mother in.
Or their mother-in-law. Oh gosh, guys, like, no. I don't want that. It's a disaster. Mm-hmm. And I can't, it's hard for me. I mean, I get really vulnerable when I do this work. And it's difficult when someone is coming in and sitting down and they're wanting me to, well, I wonder if she's, if you want to get a good reading, don't sit down and clam up and try to see if this person's legitimate or not.
Right.
It literally puts almost like a psychic block. It doesn't mean that I don't get things. I'll still get things. In fact, I've had readings before that were so torturous for me because the person's sitting there going, I wonder if she's legit or not. They bring this attitude in, right? And I feel, I have to be vulnerable. You do too.
Oh yeah, totally.
When you do this work, you have to be really present. You have to be really vulnerable. And it's painful to sit there with somebody who's trying to be so skeptical of you the whole time. I remember I was so hurt by just her energy, and And everything I would say, she would go, no, that's not. And then towards the end, I don't know, I got off on one train of thought, and her eyes just got really big and she got really quiet. And I knew something had shifted, right? And then she went, yeah. I mean, I was, she figured out that I was legitimate. And now she comes back to me on a regular basis.
Wow.
But it was really difficult. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it starts to flow when you want it to work. Yeah. Right? When you're not skeptical. You don't bring all that negativity into it.
It does create an energetic barrier to some degree. And at the same time, sometimes, on the flip side of that, Laura, when I come across the skeptics in my office, let's say the Reiki practice, for example, I remind myself, I'm not the one doing the work. It's the client doing the work. I'm just the human hands on the table. And so it reminds me to be unattached to the outcome and to go, correct, this is what the divine has provided today. I'm just going to do my thing, and whatever this client needs, they will receive it.
Yes.
And so sometimes magic happens and they're like, oh, I feel that. Okay, this is real. And I'm just like, I'm not doing the work anyway. So it reminds me to not be attached and just be humble, and I'm just here to serve.
That's the practice we have to have doing this work.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I just want to say, because there's a difference between somebody coming in and wanting, it's almost like, even if it's subconscious, they want it not to work, or they want to prove that it's not going to work. There's a difference between that and someone, because I guarantee you that person was willing on some level that you affected.
Agreed.
So they might come in and go, I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do this, and I'm nervous. Yeah. Those are my favorite. Yeah. Because there's a part of them that comes in that's really willing. And then the magic does happen for those folks. Because, and again, it's not me, but our guides and spirit and God, or whatever you want to call it, it's all there for us, and it'll help you. All you have to be is willing, which is what makes this work, I don't know, so amazing. The other thing we wanted to talk about today was skepticism when it comes to religion. And I was born in the Deep South. I'm a Methodist, which, as we were talking about earlier, is light Baptist. Watered down Baptist. So, and I come from a family that's just only supportive, and and part of that is the Methodism. So they're just like, that's cool, we're still having pancakes for supper. Right? But what do I say when I get that? And even, you're Hindu, or were raised Hindu, but you're in the South. Yeah. So I'm sure you've gotten this as well. And when people say, I've had people, and sometimes I vibe on it. They're a little stoic and they're a little nervous. And again, somebody's pushed them to come, but they're willing. Yeah. And they say, what do you think about Jesus? What do you think about God? And I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, they're nervous about their faith. And, I was raised Christian, and I would consider myself a Christian because that's the religion I was raised in. And I've read the Bible, and I think there's some amazing, beautiful truths in the Bible. And it's a great gateway at times to universal truth. So there you go. I do not think that is the only way to universal truth, but I wear a white hat, and I really talk about that. I'm not ever trying to encourage or channel or work on anything negative or dark, just even for the thrill of it, which I think people get attracted to that. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm about. And it's banned from my work. Mm-hmm. So I work in conjunction with God, and that's how I speak to that. And if somebody's that afraid and it doesn't feel right and it's not what their religion says, then don't do it, you guys. Yeah. Find somebody that works for you. Yeah. And again, it's a red flag. I'm like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing for you. And I completely love you and respect that and understand it. Now, you were raised Hindu, though, which is, they invented it. They invented an ancient language. I do astrology. And Vedic astrology is older than even Western astrology.
Yeah, it's incredible. Actually, when I was born in India, but, moved to the States with my family when I was just shy of a year old. But, we maintain a lot of those beliefs in the culture. When I went back as a child around age 7, I had my chart done, and it was by hand. It was one of our relatives, and he was a well-known astrologer, and he did everything by hand, and it was just all this mathematics, and what he told me at that age was profound. He told me
How old were you?
I was 7 at the time, and he told me that I would be doing work like this one day. Yeah, even the fact that there would be cameras and like a broader platform. And at the time, I didn't understand what all that meant, but so it's ingrained in my culture, so it's not a foreign concept. And so here in the West, especially in the South, there's definitely I think people are fearful of it. Some cultures, subcultures are very fearful of this work, and it's all about belief. So when you have fear of something, it's just an opportunity, or skepticism. It's an opportunity to recognize that you've hit up against a belief, and you can now choose, does that belief still work for you, or do you find it limiting in some way? And then you can go, oh, well, maybe there's something to this. So you start the exploration and the curiosity to expand your worldview, and that's where you get all these new experiences when you start to step beyond your worldview. So anytime someone goes, well, that's against my religion, I'll say, okay, well, let's talk about that, and that's okay. I'm not making you do this work. Totally your choice. Totally your choice.
And that's really positive skepticism.
Yeah.
Because skepticism is so crucial. And I welcome skeptics, and I love a conversation. So yes, Darshana, along that note, that's the other thing I would say that's a red flag with folks. When someone is in this conversation where it's about your belief system, or you're skeptical, like let's say somebody says, well, I'm a little bit skeptical, can we talk about this? And they are dogmatic about their belief. I'm not dogmatic about what I do. If astrology seems kooky to you, that's funny to me, and I'm like, I got you. Yeah, it is kooky. I mean, like, you can look at it from that angle. It happens. I've had a lot of amazing experiences with it. So I personally find it helpful and interesting, but no one else has to.
Right.
And so when you butt up against somebody that's like, well, no, this is the way it is, and this is what you should believe, and they get into a debate with you, that's almost where there's judgment.
Yes, that's key.
In that conversation, back away.
Yeah.
That's not the right practitioner for you.
Exactly. Yeah, when we were talking about the red flags, the minute someone is sharing information and they're imposing their beliefs in that information too, be aware of that and go, oh, this isn't vibing for me, or this is really challenging my existing worldview and my beliefs. Because see, a good practitioner is going to know when they're bringing in their own perspective, their own beliefs, and they're going to tell you, well, this is what I'm seeing from my point of view. And I think that's really important, because then you have a practitioner that's self-aware. When they can tell you this information, this is what it's coming through, but again, I'm filtering it based on my belief.
On you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So being self-aware is really important. When you have someone who is dogmatic or very black and white and telling you this is how it is and how it has to be, I'd be a little wary. See how that feels for you. Sometimes it is very black and white, but see how it feels for you.
Because when it's good and when it's right, you feel empowered, you feel validated, you feel stronger, you feel more confident, because they're saying things that push buttons in you, and you go, oh my gosh, I already knew that. Or, oh my gosh, yeah, I've kind of felt that way. I know that it's working when I get the deep, yeah, yep. And that those people leave not going, oh my gosh, Laura, my life's fallen apart and you're going to be my life preserver. They leave going, I had this more than I thought I did. Yeah. And that's when I feel like it's been an hour well spent. Yeah.
Yeah. We want to leave people feeling more in touch with themselves, I think, is the key. I want to help clear away the clutter that's blocking you from self-actualization. and pieces of information can help us. Like, we see one another, like all of us, together. We all need support and help. Just because we're intuitive doesn't mean that we can see our own stuff clearly. So Laura does my readings, Jamie does my readings. So we need outside perspective, because when I do get a reading, it's like, oh, that's validation, or that was a piece of information I couldn't receive or I couldn't see. So thank you for that, because that was a piece of the puzzle that I needed. So you'll know how the information lands and how it feels. And most importantly, does it give you more tools to work with as you're moving through your life? It should be empowering.
And see how you described that is how to get the most out of a reading right there. So she's talking about, and again, based on what you were saying earlier, I like to get with my clients too. And this is another really positive thing. It's a conversation, you guys. It's an interchange. Now, she doesn't talk as much because she's doing Reiki.
I do, so on the front end and the back end. Yeah, well, I always talk intentions, and then I close out at the end with, I think a lot of practitioners don't do in Reiki.
So see, that there's that positive moment where you go, wait a minute, that she's having a conversation with me. She's trying to figure out what are my intentions. And I do the same thing because, mine's a talking reading, right? And I wouldn't say it's a counseling session, but it's definitely an interchange. That's how I work. So I'm constantly going, well, how does that feel for you, what I just said? And where do you think that comes up in your life? So it's not dogmatic. Yeah. I'm just trying to help them see the information, because it's not my information. It's their information.
Yeah.
I don't own it, right?
Yeah.
So I think in closing, I just want to say, trust your instincts, trust your gut, trust your emotional response to what you're doing, wouldn't you say? I think that's the most important thing. Use referrals, you guys. There might be some people that are on billboards that have turbans on that are legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to judge or say that they're not legitimate, but I would never go see a person myself if I had not been referred by somebody that had already seen them, that I respect their opinion. Yeah. Wouldn't you say?
I would agree with that. And, so get the person on the phone. If you can't get a referral, call around, see how they interact with you on the phone or by email, and just get a sense of who they are in their style of communication. That, to me, is also key, is how do they communicate? Are they self-aware? Are they understanding and compassionate about where you're coming from? Because as Laura mentioned, people are often coming to us when they're very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. They're going through something. So you want someone who knows how to hold space for you with sincerity and integrity and just that nurturing sense of being tender to what you're going through, or, the information that you're seeking to.
Mm-hmm. I hope this has helped. I really do. That was the intention today. That was our intention today. Yeah. We want to help people. I don't know. We want to help you demystify what we're doing, which I think is a lot of what this network's about. Kind of demystify it, and also help all of you trust yourselves more and trust your own judgment more. We all are born with the most amazing compass, right? And then I think our culture, or it might be our family system at times, tries to bury it or tell you that it's not really working, or tell you that their compass is different than yours. But we're all born with our own compass. And I think what we do is just try to uncover it and help people trust in their own compass. So I hope this has helped you guys.
Thank you, Laura, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we'll bring you more green room chats.
Yeah,
how about that?
That's what we should call it that. Totally. I like
green room chats.
We have the best conversations when the cameras aren't rolling. Like right after the episode, there's all this great conversation. We're like, dang, I can see why they do the after the shows.
I know. Have to do that. So Jessie, will you film us? Like literally, we get up on the sofa and we get tea and we get all the pillows on us and we start having all these great conversations.
We should totally do that.
Yeah, will you come film us?
Jamie may come walking by. Just grab him.
We should have pajama chat. We should all get in pajamas.
I don't wear pajamas. That'd be a whole different network. I'm just kidding.
yeah, let's do it. Yeah. No, we won't do that to you guys. Don't worry.
Tell us if you want it.
We'll ask Ra what he thinks about that.
Totally.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you next time.